The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's webinar. Today's talk is entitled Investigator-Powered EDC. My name is Eric Falvey, Senior Director of Business Development Europe at IDDI, and it is my pleasure to be your moderator for today's session. Today's event will run for approximately 40 minutes, including time for a Q&A session at the end. The session is designed to be interactive and works best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit questions and comments by using the questions chat box in your control panel, and we'll answer your questions during the Q&A session. If you require assistance, please contact me at any time by sending me a message using your control panel. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. And please note, the session will be recorded and made available to you on the IDDI website for viewing within 24 hours after the webinar is complete. This event is proudly hosted by the International Drug Development Institute, IDDI. IDDI is an expert center in biostatistical and integrated eClinical services for pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies in several disease areas, including oncology and ophthalmology. IDDI optimizes the clinical development of drugs, biologics, and devices thanks to proven statistical expertise and operational excellence. Founded in 1991, IDDI is headquartered in Brussels, Belgium, with the U.S. Center of Operations in Raleigh, North Carolina. So our guest speaker today is Marie-Pierre Morris, Clinical Data Management Expert at IDDI. Marie-Pierre has a wealth of experience spanning her career of 25 years within clinical data management. She has worked for several pharmaceutical companies, including Merck Sharp & Dohme and GSK, handling the data collection process for numerous therapeutic areas across all study phases. And now it is my pleasure to hand the webinar over to Marie-Pierre, who will be sharing some examples of how clients have benefited from the simple EDC user interface while leveraging complex, customizable workflows for the clinical trials, and to answer any questions you may have related to this topic. Marie-Pierre, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Okay, I am having problems sharing my screen, I have to say. So if somebody could help me.
Sure thing. I've made you the presenter, so you should have full capabilities. So if you go to the sharing tab on your control panel, you just select
okay, now I can.
screen.
Correct. Okay. So I guess we're all set to go. Okay, so good morning and good afternoon to everybody attending the meeting today, or those that will be listening to the recording later on, and thank you for joining. So my name is Marie-Pierre Morris, and I will today give you a demo of ID-base, the EDC system used at IDDI. Although the EDC is not owned by IDDI, but by eClinical, we do have the control on the EDC setup. So the control on the ECRF contents, on the edit checks that are built in, on the use of the core system features, such as the ability to import external data or to integrate to other systems. The control also on the user roles and the permissions assigned to these users, to be able to manage data that needs to remain blinded, for instance, or simply to capture adjudication data, and of course, many other features. Our goal as data managers is to provide the best solutions to complex protocol designs and demanding data requirements, and this in such a way that the data collection is seamless for the sites. It will not be only a matter of not capturing redundant data, of deriving data rather than entering it. It will also be using the technology to our advantage. So today, this will not be any demo, but one that is designed to illustrate things that we have been able to put in place by the data management team to support their studies and the sponsors' needs. For timing purposes, I will of course only show a few of those, but after this demo, and even probably and hopefully during the demo already, you will be able to envision what the IDDI team can make possible for you. So before I start and access this demo instance, let me warn you that the demo instance contains different types of form from different types of trials. So please do not pay as much attention to the contents and the logic between these different forms than to the possibility that ID-base offers. So I'm going to connect to this instance as a CRA.
Marie-Pierre, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yes?
I don't see your screen.
Okay. Thanks for interrupting.
Wasn't sure when they were gonna, here we go. No, it's the other one. No, that's the wrong screen. Voila. Now we've got your login. Perfect.
Yes, rather
Excellent.
than my notes.
That's perfect. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. So I'm actually connecting to that demo instance. This is just to show you that there's the possibility of having multiple studies within the same instance so that your users can collect two different studies with the same login. And the instance that I will want to show to you today is the Training 2 instance. So what you can see here is a standard homepage with regards to the help desk information and the study documentation perspective. What is not standard is what you can see here. This is a solution that was brought to our sponsor in the context of them wanting a quick overview of the study status. So an easy access to an overview on the homepage rather than having to go into some of the ID-bases menus. Here it's a simple count of patients per site just to illustrate. This does not match what was done for that particular study, but you can already imagine what it could be for yours. The second report, the second dashboard report, is more customized to the user role, so more of a pending activity dashboard. So connected as a CRA, I would need to be closing the queries answered by the site. So this is why you have the list of answered queries available on that homepage for you to look at. So I will stay on the topic of reports, and I will show you different examples of EDC reports and the features that can be added to these to customize them to your needs. EDC reports can be grouped into different categories as you see and as you wish. So let me just select the first one. So you will see here that there's an option to select the patient. So we can actually, on the reports, allow different filtering. The variables could be the patient ID, such as in this example, it could be the site, it could be the gender, it could even be a date. And actually the use of a date can be very handy if you are running metric reports, if you want to check the status up to a given date. So for follow-up in case of an interim analysis. So just running the report, there's two things I wanted to highlight on this report. The first one obviously is the color coding. So it's possible for us to highlight different variables. Here we chose to highlight the serious AEs for you. And the second thing I wanted to show you is under the AE number and the CM number that there is actually a hyperlink. So you could decide to go into the CRF directly from the report, whether it's on the AE or the concomitant medication information. So again, this can be very handy. Once you've reviewed the output of your report, you could go into the CRF and post the relevant queries. With regards to exporting these reports, whether it's this one or any other, you can have multiple functionality, one of which is to report in Excel, and you can have your reports in Excel. So let me show you a couple of other reports. So we have this graphical representation of AEs. So what this is doing for you is showing all the different AEs in the database and doing quite neat and user-friendly graphical representation with the color codes associated with the different severities. So here in this instance, we have 4 AEs of headache with a mild intensity, one with a moderate intensity, and one with a severe intensity. You have at the bottom of the report listed all of the data that is supporting that graphical representation. And again, if I click on this Excel, you will have the report generated in an Excel spreadsheet. Here you go. So the other report that I wanted to show you is the Clean Patient Tracker. So this is not a variable that you can filter on, but it's a different way that you can output your file. So you can either output it directly on screen, or you can use the download file, which is going to output this in Excel directly for you. So this is not a very big report, so I can just do it on screen. And what this Clean Patient Tracker is doing is showing you the status for different patients of the data in the EDC. What we would typically do with this is we would download the report, and then we would append to this a report run out of SAS. So based on the SAS data sets, that would give you the status on the coding, would give you the status on the SAE reconciliation, would give you the status on all of the other data, external data reconciliations, and we would combine these two together to have a clean patient that would give you the indication whether the patient is clean, both from the EDC perspective and from the SAS perspective. So reports such as this Clean Patient Tracker, and actually any other, can be automatically extracted on a daily basis if needed and posted on an SFTP in order to be accessible for external users. And these external users would be typically the sponsors or the clinical CRO. Okay, another graphical representation, very similar to the AE one that I showed, is one showing the event status. So in ID-base, an event is a visit or cumulative form such as an adverse event, concomitant medication page, or a procedure page. And this is showing the different events and their different statuses. So whether they're complete or incomplete, or if they sign. So typically in the setup in ID-base, the first level of signature is the one assigned to the CRA, and the second level of signature is the one assigned to the investigator. And again, you have at the bottom here, all of the data that is feeding into the above graph. Okay, the one or other that I wanted to show you is a study overview. So it's giving the status a bit like the previous on the events. You have a separate table showing this on the forms. You have separate tables showing you the query status. And the point of showing this to you is to show that unlike the other reports where we had only one sheet, we can actually export the results of the report in multi-sheets. So having this can actually prevent you from having to copy and paste different reports into a report. And you could actually imagine the EDC report mimicking the study status that you would need to deliver. So this is really, again, something that is quite handy to use as a feature. So let me just go into this one last report that I like also very much. So it's the report that is listing queries per country. So it's counting the number of patients and giving you metrics about the queries. And the neat thing about this is if you select the country, you will actually have the report showing you the same information, but just at the country level with all the details of the centers. So basically, having real-time access to data has really made our clients a bit more demanding with regards to the ad hoc reporting functionality. It's true that many do not want to request a SAS database extract or having to request a report from the IDDI data management team to be able to see what they want when they want. ID-base does support this functionality, so this ad hoc reporting functionality, and I will show it to you now. Bear with me, the connection to this demo is fairly slow from home and sometimes erratic. So I hope that this will work directly. No, it will not. So let me just disconnect and connect back in. This usually does the trick. Okay. This is not. Okay, I am back in. So back into the reports menu, the interactive reporting, and let me show this to you. Okay, now it works. Brilliant. Okay, so this is the Training 2 database I was connected to. We have actually a different database that we could be running reports off. So 4 metadata models, as they are called. So you have one that on which you will have access to the users and the role and all of the audit trail with regards to the activation of the different users. You will have one in which you can query all the queries, so have metrics, use a sum as an example. I will just do a very simple report. So this has been set. So this doesn't sound or doesn't look very intuitive or very user-friendly to you, but it's because you haven't actually seen the ECRF. If you look at the 2 first elements here, you can already picture that our ECRF has been designed in such a way that we have this leading question, whether the patient has had an AE, yes or no, and then the actual page where the AE information is captured. So basically all of this is what you would find in the ECRF. So let's take this simple example of a listing where we would want to know which patients have completed the study and have not yet had an adverse event. Before I do so, I just wanted to highlight one particular thing. So the distinction between the variables under the measures and the ones under the dimensions. So basically the measures are the variables that you would be using in the list or the counts, and the variables and the dimensions would be the ones that you would use to sort and to group. So very as simple as that. So I'm going to just open up this AE. I am going to use that question, so the one that is about if the patient has experienced any AEs or not. And I am going to open up the discontinuation, so the early termination, and I'm going to pull the date of premature discontinuation. And I'm also going to show you that we can just search for something by typing on the top of the list there, and I'm going to select the patient, and I am going to select the patient under the dimension. So now I've got this all prepared, and I can run the report to preview it. And as expected, it's listing the patients, the answer to that AE question, and the date of discontinuation when applicable. I could just, stop there and just use that to filter and find out the information I needed. But for demo purposes, again, I will just continue in the logic. What I really do want to have is the patients that have no to that question. So amongst other features, I can filter. So I'm going to filter there. And I'm going to click on the value, and it is going to open up a pop-up box that I like to use because it's simply going to allow me to get the values that are present in the database, and I'm going to get all of the values. Of course, this is going to just return a no or yes. I can select the no. I'm going to save this, again, and you will see that my filter selection is going to appear on that bottom part of the screen. I will do the same type of exercise for the discontinuation because I just want to see the patients that have discontinued. And to do so, I will change the equal to not missing. Again, I'm going to save this and run the report again. And now I do have as the end result the patients that have discontinued the study and have no AEs. So let me open two other reports just for further illustration purposes, reports that were produced and that, as you see, can be saved. I am going to open that one up and run it for you. And as you see, the results looks very similar to the dashboard report that we had on the homepage. So it's counting the patients per site. And in addition, on this one, I added the number of female patients. I will open this other one. It's also a graphical representation. This one is looking at severity of the AEs and is presenting that again per site. So you have the number of AEs per site that have a mild, a moderate, and a severe intensity. And we've actually also used the color code feature where we are selecting different colors for different sites. So this is really just to illustrate, some of the basic functionalities. This is really the tip of the iceberg, as we would say. There's lots of other things that can be done, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I will go back, of course, into the demo system. Okay, and basically what I've shown you is a series of reports, and all of those need to be run from the reports menu. But this might not necessarily be that handy for the data entry staff because they will be entering data from the patient menu. So having to toggle from one to the other, as I said, not necessarily that handy. So we have actually been able to overcome this by allowing the sites to generate the reports directly from the ECRF. So this is what I'm showing on this study drug administration page. So it's this link there. It's the same type of link as the transform being the reports that allow us to generate the patient data in PDF. And I can just simply click on this and it's going to bring up a report looking very similar to the ones I've just shown you from the reports menu, but that pop up on screen, and that would list the data entered in the previous study drug administration visits so that it could, for instance, be used for this by the study coordinator to assess the relevant answer to the question about whether the patient's dosage was adjusted or not. Okay, so that was with regards to reports. So let me take the opportunity of being in the system as a CRA to show you a bit the risk-based monitoring and how it looks in the CRF. So if you look at the visit date form, you will see this little box. This little box is the tick box that the monitor needs to click on in order to document the SDV was done. We have set in this demo instance a risk-based monitoring plan, and we've got different levels of risk, the high risk, the medium risk, and the low risk. BE01, so this site, is actually set on the high risk. And we set this high risk plan to require monitoring on all of the variables. So if I go into the screening visit, you will see that every single variable or item in that demographic form has this little box next to it, meaning that all the fields require SDV. If I go into the visit date, you will see the visit date requires the SDV. If I go onto the AE, whether it's that leading question that we looked at earlier on or the actual data, you will see that all of those require SDV. In this demo instance, the medium risk has been assigned to the Swiss sites. So if I select a Swiss patient, I will show you that the SDV was set to be required only on the demographics, the AEs, and the concomitant medication pages. So if I go into the demographic form, again, all of the items require SDV. If I go onto the visit date doesn't have the same SDV box as the patients on the BE site. If I go into the medical history, it's the same thing. If I go onto the AE, I have the SDV boxes again. So you can visualize how this is reflected. And the last one, just again for illustration purposes, a patient from a French site. So the French site was set as a low risk. And again, in our demo instance, we have decided a low risk was requiring only SDV on the AEs. So that now if I show you the demo page, of course, you see that there's no SDV boxes next to this page or the visit or any of the other pages that I would select. But of course, if I go into the AE page, you see these SDV boxes. Okay, so this plan can be, of course, very flexible. It's again just for illustration purposes that those particular forms were selected. So in order to show some other features that we very often use and that I personally find neat, I'm going to connect now as an investigator. So note the same layout as for the monitor. The only difference is this user role specific dashboard. Of course, the site personnel will need to address the open queries. As a monitor, you remember I had access to the ones that were answered by the sites because my responsibility as CRA is to close them. So again, we can make these dashboards very user specific. So during the setup, we have different types of actions that we can program. So edit checks, in other words, one of which we use very often is the calculate action. So I'm going to just go into that patient's demographic form, and I will show you that the site is one of the calculated fields. And you would figure that is a calculated field because this one, unlike the others, doesn't have this double arrow edit field. And you can see also this by just opening up the audit trail, and you see that this is a calculated field. Another calculated field here is the patient number. So this is, in the example of our demo system, a concatenation between the site number and an incremental number generated by ID-base. And the third one on this particular page is the age, and that is calculated from the date of birth and the informed consent. This can be used in many situations, but not only necessarily to perform real calculations. We actually use this to copy data. And the example I wanted to share with you today is the one on target lesions. We know it's a hassle for the sites to enter the same data over and over again across the different visits. And it's very painful for them also to get queries constantly because the order of these lesions are not the same across the different visits. So what I'm going to show you is how we can calculate, so copy in from the target lesions or non-target lesion forms at screening, the same lesion in all of the post-screening assessments. And to do so, I will add from the drop-down menu here, the radiological assessment. So this event has been designed so the purpose of designing this as a separate event was actually a solution to overcome the situation where the visits are postponed, and the protocol usually allows that, but the scans need to be done on a regular basis. So by removing the scans out of the cycle visits, we are making it easier for the sites to enter the radiological assessments when it's needed and to prevent them from having numerous queries about the dates of these scans not matching the cycle visits. So let me just go into this target lesion, and the sites will just need to document the date of the scan. And then upon doing this, automatically, as you see already, the lesions that were identified at screening get copied over. So the date needs to be filled in, the method and the measurements. And anytime a new radiological assessment will be created, that copy over will be effective. So it's a benefit for the sites that don't have to enter this constantly. It's a benefit from the reporting perspective because all of the lesions are in the same order, and that whether it's a report in the EDC or something run out of the SAS data sets. Okay. So I am going to also just show you the some of the other functionality that I find particularly neat also. The first one here has to do with this example. So it's a graphical representation of a lung. And what's really cool about it is that you can select the location of the lesion by just clicking on the image. And as you see here, not only does the location appear highlighted, but you can actually also have this pre-populated so that you can keep the image, and this is the data that is going to end up in the export. I am going to also take the opportunity to show you how the local lab are managed at IDDI, and I'm just going to find a patient that hasn't yet any lab data entered. So the process is fairly simple. We ask that the CRAs complete a lab normal range template with all the ranges required for the test required per protocol. And that page is sent over to IDDI, and the data entry team at IDDI will enter that information in ID-base, but at the level of the center, so that the sites in the chemistry page or the hematology page will just simply need to refer to the sample date and select the appropriate lab just by the lab number. And as you say, the ranges, so the units, the upper range and the lower range get automatically populated into the ECRF, so that the sites just simply and basically need to key in the results. Once the results are keyed in, as you see, the system also calculates that reference range indicator, so defining if the value is high, normal, or low with regards to the normal ranges. So as straightforward as that. But let me say also that the functionality to enter data at the level of the center can be applied to other types of users than the IDDI users, and also applied to other types of data. So we could, for instance, document at the center level whether the center is going to participate or not to sub-studies. And we could also be using that information to display the right form according to that information. So let's imagine a sub-study where some ECG measurements need to be done. Then we could make sure that for that center and the patients within that center, the ECG will appear on screen just based on that information. So note also that repeated chemistry form here. So this is a non-mandatory form, so that's why it has this add functionality. It's built in the same way as the chemistry, but it's really designed as an alternative solution to a non-scheduled visit, and it really allows the sites to document the results of the tests that are required in the context of a repeat or a follow-up on an AE. And differently from the chemistry, it just allows the sites to select the appropriate value. So again, this is a way that allows us to not put as much burden on the sites if it's not required to complete the full chemistry panel in some cases. Okay, so I will now also show you the link between the CM and the AE. This is something that is based on a dynamic code list feature. And I'm going to show you this by just opening up this record that I've entered. So we have a concomitant record of antibiotics. As you see, I have documented that this was used to treat an AE, and I have access to a code list to specify what that AE is. And if you look at the code list, I have the option to put migraine or conjunctivitis. And these are the two AEs that we find in the A page, migraine and conjunctivitis. The other thing that is quite neat also is that you have this little link on the top screen. And if I click on this, it's going to bring me into the concomitant medication page in which this particular AE of conjunctivitis was linked to. Let me also demonstrate that once you change the AE text, so let's imagine this migraine, and it's not migraine, it's headache, you have the functionality here to either reset, So that means that any of the links would be removed or to update. So if I was to change migraine to headache and select the option to update, then any concomitant medication previously linked to migraine would automatically be linked to the term of headache. Okay. So this dynamic code list functionality and the others that I've shown you could, I think you could think about other purposes for them. And if you can't, the IDDI data managers definitely can for you. This is how I think I will finish my demo today. I hope it was instructive and helpful. And I guess that now we'll be looking at your questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Marie-Pierre. And I think, Kelsey, if you can get it back to me, I'll share my. There we go. Okay, so thank you again, Marie-Pierre, for your detailed demonstration. I hope everyone enjoyed that. So just to kick off the Q&A portion, as a reminder to our audience, you can continue sending in your questions using the questions panel that I showed earlier. We've already received a few questions, so I'll start with those. Coming to the beginning of the demo here, Marie-Pierre, first question is, can the reports show changed data since the last time the report was run? So again, can report show changed data since the last time the report was run? That's the first question.
Yes, we could. I was thinking because I can't recall having ever seen that, but yes, definitely we can because we have the audit trail in the EDC database. So it's something that we can query on. So yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Next one, here is ID-base suitable for submission trials?
Yes, of course. And as a matter of fact, we've had a sponsor submitting their study, I think it was in February this year. And following, of course, that submission, they were inspected by the FDA, and there was actually no comments whatsoever about the EDC, nor any of the other data management activities. So yes, definitely, it can be used.
Okay. So get this one in. Okay, amendments are always a pain and a concern. So the question here is, how do you accomplish the CRF amendments?
Okay, the CRF amendments, whether it's to enhance the CRF or related to protocol amendments, and we know how painful sometimes these can be, we follow the same approach. We test that in a testing instance, and before we release to production, we do what we call a clone. So a clone is the real copy of the production instance, so that we release the amendment on that clone, and that we ensure that no changes other than the ones that we expect are made. And once that has been confirmed, then we release to production, and it's really totally transparent to the users.
Okay, and let's see, let's try this one. This is coming up quite a bit in meetings we've had. So what is your experience incorporating ePro data?
Well, our experience with ePro data is that very often it's included in the SAS database, not so often in the EDC. Having said that, ID-base does offer the functionality of having the patient as a user. So we can make sure that the users have access to the questionnaires, and we can also set up the system so that the site personnel doesn't see the questions nor the answers from the patient. So again, we can set up a lot of different functionality and features around the patient as user.
Okay, let's see, one here about, okay. We mentioned at the beginning our therapy experience. So the question here is, do you have experience in ophthalmology studies using this EDC?
Yes, we do. We have a fair amount of studies, yes, in ophthalmology, yes. And the features I've shown, we also use them in that type of clinical trials, yes.
Okay, cool. Another one, as a CRA, can I have access to multiple trials without the need of relogging in each time?
Yes, 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 totally. That's what I showed when I was connecting initially. You've got that bar on the top, and you can just select from that bar the study you want to connect as. Yes.
Okay, cool. And looking at the time, we're at 40, but maybe we can get this one in, Marie-Pierre. And this is a funny one, I think. Can you manage paper CRF studies? Does that still exist?
Well, we can, of course we can, but we've actually how should I say? We've actually compared the budget for ID-base paper versus ID-base EDC, and the price for the EDC version of it is always better. So we can, but we haven't done paper studies in quite a long time.
Okay.
It's not cost effective, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's looking at the time. I know we wanted to keep this around 40 minutes, so I think let's see. Yeah, so I think let's kind of wrap it up here. So I wanted to thank everyone for your questions, and we've reached the end of the Q&A portion of today's session. But please note, if we couldn't attend to your question, or we'll be sure to follow up with you after this presentation today. If you do have any questions, please direct them to Dominique Rizard at IDDI.com. Her email address is here. And I wanted to thank everyone again for participating in today's webinar demo. You'll be receiving a follow-up email with access to the recorded archive for this event. And again, a final thank you to our speaker, Marie-Pierre Morris, for that very insightful EDC demonstration. I thought it was really great to show those highlights, especially what the key elements you find important to share with the audience today. That was really good. So, so anyway, everyone, we hope you found this webinar informative. It's really been my pleasure to be your moderator. And on behalf of the team at IDDI, we thank you for joining us. And until next time, please take care and bye for now.